The rain fell hard on Marcus Rodriguez as he sat in his wheelchair outside the VA hospital. His discharge papers were wet and crumpled in his lap. 3 tours in Afghanistan, 2 Purple Hearts, 1 spinal injury that ended everything. The doctors said he was lucky to be alive. Marcus did not feel lucky. His prosthetic leg hurt in the cold Seattle weather. The metal joint made clicking sounds when he moved. People walked past him on the sidewalk without looking. Just another broken soldier that nobody wanted to see. Just another reminder of wars that most people tried to forget. Marcus had been Staff Sergeant Rodriguez once. His men called him Ghost because he could move through enemy territory without being seen. He could plan missions that brought everyone home alive. He was good at his job. He was good at war. Now he was nothing. The government said thank you for your service and handed him a monthly check that barely paid for his tiny apartment. The VA hospital said they would help him adjust to civilian life. But civilian life did not want Marcus Rodriguez. Employers saw the wheelchair and found excuses. His wife left after 6 months. His friends stopped calling. Marcus pulled his jacket tighter against the rain. He was thinking about the bottle of pills in his pocket. The pain medication that could make everything stop hurting. Not just his leg, everything. That was when the sky changed. A shadow fell over the city, but there were no clouds. Marcus looked up and saw something impossible. A ship, not an airplane or helicopter. Something else. Something that did not belong. The ship was silver and smooth like a teardrop. It was huge, bigger than any building Marcus had ever seen. It hung in the air without making any sound. No engines. No propellers. Just floating there like it weighed nothing at all. People on the street started pointing and shouting. Car accidents happened as drivers stared at the sky instead of the road. Cell phones came out everywhere as people tried to take pictures. Marcus watched it all with the calm eyes of a soldier. This was first contact. This was aliens. This was the kind of thing that would change everything forever. But Marcus was not afraid. He had seen enough war to know that fear was just another enemy to defeat. Instead, he studied the ship. He looked for weapons. He looked for weak spots, old habits, a smaller ship separated from the big one. This one was the size of a city bus. It came down slowly and landed in the parking lot across the street. The concrete did not crack under its weight. Whatever kept it in the air was still working. A door opened in the side of the small ship. No ramp came down. No stairs appeared. Just a doorway with soft blue light coming from inside. 3 figures walked out. They looked almost human, but not quite. Taller and thinner. Their skin had a gray color like old metal. Their eyes were bigger than human eyes and completely black. No white parts at all. They wore clothes that looked like they were made from liquid silver. The leader of the 3 aliens raised one hand. When he spoke, his voice came from a small device on his chest. The words were perfect English. People of Earth, we are the Karathi. We come in peace. We wish to speak with your leaders. More people gathered around the parking lot. Police sirens wailed in the distance. News helicopters appeared overhead. This was about to become a circus. The alien leader looked around at all the humans staring at him. His black eyes moved across the crowd. Then he stopped. He was looking directly at Marcus. One of the other aliens stepped closer to the leader. This one was shorter and had what looked like weapons on his belt. He whispered something in a language that sounded like wind chimes. The leader nodded and started walking. Not toward the police who were setting up barriers. Not toward the news crews who were shouting questions. He walked straight toward Marcus. People moved out of the way as the alien crossed the street. Some ran, others just stared. But the alien kept walking until he stood in front of Marcus and his wheelchair. The alien knelt down so his strange black eyes were level with Marcus. This close, Marcus could see that the alien's skin had tiny scales like a snake. His face was long and narrow, but there was something in his expression that Marcus recognized. Respect. Warrior, the alien said through his translation device. Your people have cast you aside. We offer you something they cannot. Purpose. Marcus stared back at the alien. Around them, people were taking pictures and recording videos. Police were shouting orders. Helicopters circled overhead. But in that moment, it felt like only Marcus and the alien existed. You don't know anything about me, Marcus said. The alien smiled. It was a strange expression on his inhuman face, but it seemed genuine. We know more than you think. We have watched your world for many years. We have studied your wars. You're soldiers. You are Marcus Rodriguez. 3 tours of combat duty. Staff Sergeant. Your men called you Ghost? Marcus felt something cold move through his chest. This alien knew things that were not in any public record. We know you were wounded serving your people. The alien continued. We know they abandoned you when you could no longer fight their wars. We know you sit here in the rain thinking about ending your pain forever. The alien reached into a fold of his silver clothing and pulled out a small bottle, the same kind of bottle that Marcus had in his pocket. The same pain medication. We also know that warriors like you are too valuable to waste, the alien said. He crushed the pill bottle in his hand. It turned to dust that blew away in the wind. Your people see only what you cannot do. We see what you can do. Marcus looked at this impossible creature kneeling in the rain beside his wheelchair, an alien from another world who somehow understood him better than his own government, better than his own wife, better than anyone. What do you want from me? Marcus asked. The alien's smile became wider. We want you to be what you were born to be, a warrior. Your world is in danger, Marcus Rodriguez. Your people will need soldiers like you, soldiers who know how to win when winning seems impossible. Marcus looked around at the chaos surrounding them. Police were trying to push back crowds of people. News crews were fighting for the best camera angles. Politicians would arrive soon to make speeches and claim credit, but none of them were talking to the aliens. The aliens had chosen to talk to him. A broken soldier in a wheelchair who everybody else ignored. Marcus made his decision. Tell me what you need. The alien stood up and held out his hand. Marcus gripped it and felt strength he had not felt in months. Welcome to the war for Earth, the alien said. And Marcus Rodriguez smiled for the first time since coming home. The inside of the Karathi ship was nothing like Marcus expected. The walls glowed with soft blue light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The floors felt solid but made no sound when his wheelchair rolled across them. Everything was curved and smooth like the inside of a giant egg. Ambassador Hyun led Marcus through hallways that twisted and turned in ways that hurt to think about. Sometimes they walked on walls. Sometimes the ceiling became the floor. But Marcus never felt dizzy or confused. The ship somehow made sure everyone stayed comfortable. Your human physics are very limited, Hyun explained as they moved through the impossible geometry. You think in straight lines. The universe thinks in curves. They entered a large room with no windows but walls that showed space outside. Stars moved slowly past like the ship was sailing through an ocean of light. Earth hung below them looking small and blue and fragile. Beautiful world, said Captain Day. He was the shorter Karathi who had whispered to Hyun earlier. His black eyes reflected the image of Earth. Very young. Very innocent. That is why they want it. They? Marcus asked. Hyun touched a control panel and the starfield changed. Now Marcus could see other ships. Hundreds of them. Some looked like the Karathi vessel, but others were different. Darker, more angular, built for war instead of exploration. The Galactic Council, Hyun said. 3 species that rule most of the galaxy. The Thesian Empire, the Vorthon Republic, the Nexus Collective. They have decided that your world is ready for integration. A new alien entered the room. This one was female and wore a white coat over her silver clothing. She had the same gray skin and black eyes as the others, but her face was kinder. More curious than dangerous, Dr. Kim, Hyun said. Our xenobiologist. She has studied your species longer than anyone. Dr. Kim bowed slightly to Marcus. It is an honor to meet you, Staff Sergeant Rodriguez. Your military record is most impressive. How do you know so much about us? Marcus asked. We have been watching Earth for 87 of your years, Dr. Kim explained. She touched the wall and images appeared. Pictures of human wars, soldiers fighting, cities burning. We study species before they discover faster than light travel. Most never survive long enough to leave their home worlds. The images changed to show other planets, other species. Most looked dead. Cities in ruins, empty landscapes under alien skies. The galaxy is not a peaceful place, Dr. Kim continued. The Council maintains order through strength. They find young civilizations like yours. They study them. They decide if they are useful. And if they are not useful? Marcus asked. Then they are eliminated, Captain Day said simply. Cleaner that way. Less complications. Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. But they think we are useful. Oh yes, Dr. Kim said. The images changed again to show humans working in mines and factories on alien worlds. Humans are excellent workers. Strong backs. Clever hands. You follow orders well when properly motivated. Slaves, Marcus said. The council prefers the term integrated labor force, Hyun said. It sounds better in their reports. The images showed more scenes of human slavery. Children separated from parents. Families broken apart. People working until they died and being replaced by more people from Earth. How long do we have? Marcus asked. His voice was steady, but his hands gripped the arms of his wheelchair. 6 months, Captain Day answered. Maybe less. The Thesian advance fleet is already moving toward your system. 3 Dreadnought-class warships. Each one could destroy your entire planet. Dr. Kim touched the wall again and new images appeared. Massive ships that looked like metal mountains floating in space. Weapons that could crack continents. Shields that could stop nuclear weapons like they were thrown rocks. Your governments know nothing about this, Hyun said. They think we are here for peaceful contact. Trade agreements. Technology sharing. They have no idea what is coming. Marcus studied the images of the Thesian warships. He had spent years learning how to fight enemies with better weapons and more soldiers. The trick was to find their weaknesses. Everything had weaknesses. Why are you telling me this? Marcus asked. Why not tell our presidents or generals or whoever is supposed to handle this kind of thing? The 3 Karathi exchanged glances. Dr. Kim spoke first. Because your leaders will panic. They will try to surrender immediately. They will offer to give the council whatever they want in exchange for mercy. And the council will accept, Captain Day added. They prefer cooperation to conquest. Less expensive that way. But you think that is wrong? Marcus asked. We think your species has potential, Hyun said. We have watched you fight. We have seen how you adapt, how you survive, how you refuse to give up even when everything seems hopeless. The images changed to show human battles, soldiers fighting against impossible odds, people refusing to surrender even when defeat was certain. Marcus recognized some of the battles. He had been in a few of them. The council has never faced a species like yours, Dr. Kim said. They expect civilized warfare, rules, honor. They expect their enemies to surrender when the situation becomes hopeless. But humans do not surrender, Captain Day said with something that might have been admiration. Especially your warriors. They fight until they die or until they win. Nothing in between. Marcus thought about this, about the wars he had fought, about the soldiers he had served with, about the impossible missions they had completed because giving up was not an option. The council has made one very important mistake, Hyun said. They think your people are weak because your governments abandon your warriors. They see soldiers like you in wheelchairs and hospitals and they assume you are defeated. Are we? Marcus asked. Dr. Kim smiled. It was the first time Marcus had seen a Karathi show emotion. That depends on you, she said. The council expects Earth to surrender without a real fight. They expect your leaders to see their overwhelming power and give up immediately. They have never considered that a planet's real defenders might not be the people in government buildings. A new alien entered the room. This one was taller than the others and wore what looked like military uniform. His silver clothing had marks and symbols that probably meant rank. Engineer J, Hyun said. He maintains our weapons and defense systems. Engineer J bowed to Marcus. I have heard much about human military engineering. Very crude but very effective. You make weapons from anything. You turn peaceful tools into instruments of war. When we have to, Marcus said. You will have to, Jay said seriously. The Thesian weapons are more advanced than anything on Earth. But advancement is not the same as effectiveness. Sometimes simple solutions work better than complex ones. The engineer touched a control and new images appeared. Karathi weapons and technology. Energy shields. Faster than light communication. Medical devices that could heal wounds in minutes. We cannot give you warships, Jay explained. That would violate too many council laws. But we can provide other things, tools, medical supplies, information. Why? Marcus asked. Why help us at all? What do you get out of this? The room fell silent. The 3 Karathi looked at each other again. Finally, Hyun spoke. Because the council has ruled the galaxy for too long. Because they treat other species like animals or machines. Because someone needs to show them that not every world will kneel when they arrive. And because, Dr. Kim added quietly, we believe that warriors who refuse to surrender might be exactly what the galaxy needs. Marcus looked at the images of Thesian warships again. Then at the pictures of human slaves working on alien worlds. Then at Earth hanging in space below them, beautiful and doomed unless someone did something about it. When do we start? He asked. Captain Day smiled, and it looked like a predator showing teeth. We already have. Marcus sat in his apartment staring at the small device the Karathi had given him. It looked like a hearing aid, but Dr. Kim said it would let him talk to anyone in the world without being detected. The government could not listen in. The military could not trace it. Even the aliens coming to destroy Earth would not know it existed. He had been back on Earth for 3 days. The news was full of stories about the alien contact. Politicians made speeches about peaceful cooperation and new trade deals. Scientists talked about advanced technology and medical breakthroughs. Everyone was excited about humanity's bright future among the stars. None of them knew the truth. None of them knew about the Thesian war fleet heading toward Earth. None of them knew that in 6 months their world would be conquered and their people enslaved. Marcus activated the communication device and spoke a name. Elena Vasquez. The device found her immediately. Elena had been a ranger in the army before an IED took her left arm and ended her military career. Now she ran a support group for disabled veterans in Detroit. Marcus had served with her brother in Afghanistan before he died in a rocket attack. Ghost. Elena's voice came through clearly. Is that really you? It's me, Marcus said. I need to see you. All of you. Can you get the group together tonight? What's this about? Elena asked. You sound different, focused. I'll explain when I see you. Just trust me. This is important. More important than anything we've ever done. That evening, Marcus wheeled into the community center in Detroit where Elena held her meetings. 23 disabled veterans sat in folding chairs arranged in a circle. Men and women who had served their country and been forgotten by it. People with missing limbs and damaged minds and scars that would never heal. Marcus knew most of their stories. Jake Thompson had been a Navy SEAL before PTSD ended his career. He worked construction now when he could handle being around other people. Mina Park had been a Marine pilot until her helicopter was shot down over Iraq. The crash damaged her spine and her left eye. Tom Mitchell had been a sniper until nerve damage made his hands shake too much to hold a rifle steady. All of them had been thrown away by a system that used them up and moved on. All of them lived on disability checks that barely covered rent. All of them had been told they were heroes while being treated like problems to be managed. I know why you called us here, Elena said after Marcus had spoken for an hour. You want us to believe that aliens are coming to invade Earth and only we can stop them. I know how it sounds, Marcus replied. But look at this. He activated a holographic projector the Karathi had given him. Images filled the air above the circle of chairs. Thesian warships. Human slaves on alien worlds. The Galactic Council's invasion plans. The veterans stared at the impossible images floating in front of them. Jake reached out to touch one and his hand passed through empty air. This is real, Mina asked. Her good eye was fixed on a picture of human children being separated from their parents. As real as the wars we fought, Marcus answered. As real as the wounds we carry. As real as the way our own people abandoned us when we came home broken. Tom studied an image of Thesian soldiers. His damaged hands twitched like he was imagining holding a rifle again. Why us? He asked. Why not go to the Pentagon or the UN or someone who actually matters? Because they'll surrender, Marcus said. They'll see those ships and decide that cooperation is better than extinction. They'll trade human freedom for human survival. And that's wrong? Elena asked. Marcus looked around the circle at faces marked by war and neglect. At people who had given everything for their country and received nothing in return. You tell me, he said. Is living on your knees better than dying on your feet? The room fell silent. These were people who understood sacrifice. Who had faced death and chosen to fight anyway. Who had lost pieces of themselves in service to something larger. What are you asking us to do? Jake said finally. What we've always done, Marcus replied. What we were trained to do. Fight an enemy that has better weapons and more soldiers. Win a war that everyone says is impossible to win. Over the next few weeks, Marcus traveled across the country. The Karathi gave him transportation and cover stories. To the outside world, he was just another disabled veteran visiting VA hospitals and support groups. But he was actually building something that had never existed before. An army of the discarded. In Los Angeles, he met former Air Force engineer Sarah Chen, whose vision problems had grounded her permanently. In Houston, he found marine explosives expert David Kim, whose hearing had been damaged by too many bomb blasts. In Chicago, he recruited Army medic Lisa Park, who had lost her leg to shrapnel. but not her desire to help others. Each person he approached heard the same story. Earth was in danger. The government would surrender without a fight. Only soldiers who had already been abandoned by their own people could be trusted to defend it. Some thought he was crazy. Some walked away. But enough believed him. Enough remembered what it felt like to serve something bigger than themselves. Enough were tired of being forgotten and ignored. The Karathi provided support without being obvious about it. Money appeared in bank accounts. Medical treatments that should have cost thousands of dollars were suddenly free. New prosthetics and mobility devices arrived with no paperwork or questions asked. Agent Park was their primary contact. She was a Karathi intelligence operative who could pass for human if no one looked too closely. She taught Marcus how to use their encrypted communication network and how to identify potential recruits. "Your people amaze us," she said during one of their meetings. "The Council expects conquered species to accept their fate, but you refuse to be conquered even by your own government." Marcus was learning to use Karathi technology. The aliens had medical scanners that could see through walls, construction tools that could cut through any material, communication devices that could coordinate actions across the globe. But more importantly, Marcus was learning how the Council thought, how they fought, what they expected from conquered worlds. "They've never faced guerrilla warfare," Agent Park explained. "In their experience, civilized species fight honorable battles with clear rules. They line up their armies and fight until one side surrenders. We don't do honorable," Marcus said. "We do effective." His network grew quietly. Veterans recruited other veterans. Support groups became training cells. VA hospitals became intelligence gathering points. Within 2 months, Marcus had over 500 people across 6 continents. They learned to modify Karathi technology into weapons their makers had never imagined. A medical scanner became a surveillance device that could track enemy movements through solid walls. A construction laser became a precision, cutting tool for sabotage operations. But the most important thing they learned was hope. For the first time since coming home from war, these broken soldiers had a purpose again. They had a mission that mattered. They had a chance to prove that being discarded did not mean being defeated. "The Thesian advance fleet will arrive in 3 months. Agent Park reported during a secure communication with Marcus and his team leaders. 3 dreadnought warships. They expect Earth's governments to surrender immediately upon seeing their overwhelming power. They're going to be disappointed," Helena said from Detroit, "very disappointed." Jake added from his position in Seattle. Marcus looked at the faces on his communication screen. Veterans from around the world who had found each other through shared purpose. People who had been written off by society but were about to show that society what real strength looked like. "Operation Ghost Protocol is now active," Marcus announced. "All teams prepare for contact. The aliens think they're invading a defenseless world. Time to show them what a defended world looks like," Mina said. And in cities across Earth, forgotten warriors began their final preparations for a war the enemy did not know was coming. The Thesian fleet arrived 2 weeks early. Marcus was in his command center in the Colorado mountains when the alarm started screaming. Agent Park burst through the door with her face pale and her normally calm expression replaced by something close to panic. "They're here," she said. 3 dreadnoughts just dropped out of hyperspace. New York, Beijing, and London. They're positioning themselves over the largest population centers. Marcus rolled his wheelchair to the bank of monitors that showed news feeds from around the world. The ships were exactly as Dr. Kim had described them. Massive wedge-shaped vessels that blocked out the sun over the cities below them. Each one was over 2 kilometers long and bristled with weapons that could level continents. "Are our people in position?" Marcus asked. "As ready as they'll ever be," Agent Park replied. "But Marcus, these ships are more heavily armed than we expected. The Council has upgraded them since our intelligence reports." On the monitors, Marcus could see crowds of people staring up at the alien vessels. Some were running in panic. Others were taking pictures like this was some kind of tourist attraction. None of them understood what was really happening. The Thesian commander's voice suddenly boomed from speakers all across Earth. It spoke in perfect English and every other human language simultaneously. "People of Earth. I am Fleet Commander Vex of the Thesian Empire. You are now under the protection of the Galactic Council. For your own safety, you will surrender all military forces and submit to Council authority. Resistance will be met with appropriate force." Marcus smiled grimly. The aliens were following their standard playbook exactly as the Karathi had predicted. Overwhelming display of power. Demands for immediate surrender. Threats of destruction if their orders were ignored. What they had not counted on was that Earth's real defenders were not the people in government buildings making official decisions. They were scattered across the world in places the aliens would never think to look. All teams report, Marcus said into his communication device. Detroit team ready, Elena's voice came back. We have eyes on the London ship's landing platform. Houston team in position, David Kim reported. Beijing Dreadnought is using the same docking procedures as the simulations. Chicago team standing by, Lisa Park added. New York ship's shields are cycling exactly like Agent Park predicted. Marcus took a deep breath. Everything they had planned for was about to happen. Months of preparation. Hundreds of disabled veterans putting their lives on the line. Technology they barely understood turned into weapons by people the world had forgotten. Execute Ghost Protocol, Marcus ordered. All teams go. Across the world his people moved into action. In Beijing, Jake Thompson and his team had spent weeks preparing for this moment. They wore maintenance uniforms and carried work orders that looked completely legitimate. To anyone watching, they were just cleaning crew getting ready to service the landing platform where the Thesian ship was touching down. The aliens had no reason to suspect them. Who would use disabled humans as soldiers? Jake's PTSD meant he could barely function in normal social situations. His team included a woman with one arm and a man whose damaged hearing required sign language to communicate, but they all knew how to build bombs. The explosives were hidden, inside cleaning equipment and maintenance tools. Shaped charges designed to punch through the ship's hull at the exact points where Agent Park had identified critical systems. The aliens would never see it coming because they never thought to look for threats from people their own species would have discarded. Jake watched the massive ship settle onto the platform with landing legs that crushed concrete under their weight. Thesian soldiers began filing out in formation. Tall humanoid figures in battle armor that could stop bullets and energy weapons. Beijing team moving, Jake reported. 60 seconds to detonation. In London, Elena's team was having more difficulty. The Thesian ship had landed in Hyde Park and cordoned off the entire area. Alien soldiers were checking identification and scanning everyone who came near, but they were not scanning for medical devices. Elena's prosthetic arm had been replaced with a Karathi model that looked identical to human technology. Hidden inside were explosives powerful enough to cripple the ship's shield generators. All she had to do was get close enough to the power coupling that Agent Park had marked in their intelligence reports. I'm going in, Elena said. Too risky, Marcus replied from Colorado. Find another way. There is no other way, Elena said calmly. This is what we trained for. She approached the alien checkpoint in her wheelchair, playing the role of curious civilian who wanted to see the visitors from space. The Thesian guards scanned her with devices that detected weapons and hidden technology. But they did not recognize the explosive compound hidden in her prosthetic, because it was made from materials that did not exist in their databases. London team in position, Elena reported, ready to light the candle. In New York, the situation was completely different. The Thesian ship had landed on Manhattan and immediately began broadcasting surrender demands to the United Nations building. World leaders were already gathering to discuss terms of cooperation. Marcus had inserted himself into the diplomatic mission as a disabled veteran representing military families. His wheelchair and Medal of Honor got him through security without serious questioning. Nobody suspected that his prosthetic leg contained enough explosive to destroy a city block. This is insane, Agent Park said from the command center. Marcus, you don't have to do this personally. We can find another way. No other way will work, Marcus replied. He was sitting in the UN General Assembly building watching Thesian diplomats address world leaders. They need to see that surrender is not an option. They need to understand what kind of species they're dealing with. The Thesian speaker was explaining how integration would benefit humanity. Better technology, medical advances, protection from hostile alien species, all in exchange for complete submission to council authority. Several world leaders were nodding agreement. The president of France was already asking about the details of the surrender process. Marcus had heard enough. All teams execute now, he ordered. In Beijing, Jake's bombs detonated simultaneously along the Thesian ship's hull. The shaped charges punched through armor that could withstand nuclear weapons and tore into the vessel's power core. Secondary explosions rippled through the ship as fuel lines. ruptured and life support systems failed. The massive dreadnought that had seemed invincible minutes before was suddenly listing to one side with fires burning throughout its superstructure. In London, Elena triggered her prosthetic arm as she rolled past the shield generator coupling. The explosion was smaller but precisely placed. The ship's defensive screens flickered and died, leaving it vulnerable to conventional weapons for the first time since arriving. British military forces that had been helplessly watching from a distance suddenly opened fire with everything they had. Missiles and artillery shells that would have bounced harmlessly off the shields now punched through the ship's hull. In New York, Marcus waited until the Thesian diplomat was in the middle of explaining how human resistance was futile. Then he smiled and triggered the explosives in his prosthetic leg. The blast shattered windows throughout the UN building and sent shockwaves through the alien ship parked outside. But more importantly, it sent a message that every human leader in the room would understand. Earth would not surrender. As smoke filled the assembly hall and alien reinforcements rushed to secure the area, Marcus spoke into his communication device one last time. "This is Ghost. First strike successful. The war for Earth has begun." Around the world, news networks broadcast images of burning alien ships and human forces attacking invaders who had seemed unstoppable. The Thesian fleet that had expected easy victory was suddenly fighting for survival against enemies they had never taken seriously. Commander Han of the Karathi fleet observed the battles from his position at the edge of the solar system. His ship's sensors recorded everything as human forces used tactics and weapons that violated every accepted rule of civilized warfare. "Remarkable," he said to his bridge crew. "The humans are using their own disabled population as suicide bombers. No species in Council records has ever employed such strategies." On Earth, Marcus's surviving team leaders coordinated follow-up attacks as alien forces tried to regroup. The element of surprise was gone, but the psychological impact was devastating. The Thesian Empire had expected to conquer a primitive world in a matter of hours. Instead, they found themselves fighting a species that refused to accept defeat and would use any weapon available to defend itself, including weapons the aliens had not known were weapons at all. 6 months after the first strike, Earth was no longer alone in the galaxy. Marcus sat in his new command center deep under the Rocky Mountains watching holographic displays that showed battles raging across dozens of star systems. The successful defense of Earth had changed everything. Species that had been enslaved by the Galactic Council for centuries were suddenly rising up in rebellion. The Karathi had openly joined Earth's cause, bringing their advanced technology and star charts that revealed the full extent of Council oppression. Commander Han now served as Marcus's liaison to the growing alliance of free worlds. "Intelligence reports indicate the Council is mobilizing their full fleet," Han announced to the assembled command staff. "Over 3,000 warships from all 3 member species. They consider the rebellion an existential threat." Marcus studied the tactical displays. Red markers showed Council forces gathering at strategic points throughout the galaxy. Blue markers represented rebel fleets that were mostly smaller ships with crews that had more courage than equipment. "Numbers don't look good," Elena observed. She had survived the London attack and now commanded all European resistance operations. Her left arm was gone, but her strategic mind was sharper than ever. "Numbers never looked good for us," Marcus replied. "Didn't stop us from winning before." The war had spread far beyond Earth. The Zentari, an insectoid species from the galactic rim, had been the first to join the rebellion after watching human battle footage. Their warrior culture respected Earth's refusal to surrender against impossible odds. The Novani had joined next. Their homeworld had been integrated 2 centuries earlier, and their people scattered across Council space as laborers. But they remembered freedom and were willing to fight for it again. Dozens of smaller species followed. Worlds that had been conquered so long ago that the Council had forgotten they still existed as anything other than resource providers. The beautiful thing about oppression, Marcus had told a gathering of rebel leaders, is that it creates a lot of enemies. All you need is someone to show them that the oppressor can bleed. Dr. Kim, who now served as the Alliance's chief scientist, had spent months studying how human tactics could be adapted for use by other species. The results were revolutionary. "Traditional galactic warfare follows established patterns," she explained during a strategy meeting. "Fleets meet in open space. The side with superior technology and numbers wins. Defeated forces surrender and are integrated into the victor's society. Humans change the rules, added Jake Thompson, who now commanded all stealth operations. His PTSD had proven to be an advantage in covert warfare. His hypervigilance and paranoia made him impossible to surprise or ambush. The rebellion's greatest victory had come at the Xerian system, where a small force of human advisors had helped the local population defend against a major council assault. The humans had taught the Xerions how to use civilian infrastructure as weapons. Power plants became improvised bombs. Transportation networks became ambush routes. Communication systems became tools for psychological warfare. The Council forces found themselves fighting an entire planet where every civilian was a potential combatant. The Council has never faced an enemy like this. Agent Park reported from her position with the Karathi Intelligence Network. Their military doctrine assumes that conquered populations will remain passive. They have no protocols for dealing with species-wide resistance. Marcus smiled grimly as he watched the tactical displays update with new rebel victories. The war was spreading faster than the Council could contain it. Every system they tried to pacify became another source of insurgency, but the enemy was learning too. Latest intelligence shows the Council is adapting their tactics, Commander Han warned. They're implementing what they call Final Protocol for rebel worlds. Complete orbital bombardment, no survivors, no integration, just destruction. The holographic displays showed the aftermath of Final Protocol strikes. Dead worlds where nothing would ever grow again. Billions of lives snuffed out because they dared to resist Council authority. They're willing to destroy what they can't control. Marcus said quietly, "That changes things." "Does it change our strategy?" Elena asked. Marcus looked around the command center at faces he had come to know well. Disabled veterans who had found new purpose in defending not just Earth, but an entire galaxy full of oppressed peoples. Alien allies who had risked everything to stand against tyranny. "No," he said finally. "It means we win this war or we lose everything. There's no middle ground anymore." The Human Defense Network had evolved far beyond its original structure. What had started as a few hundred discarded veterans had become a galaxy-spanning intelligence and sabotage organization. Every rebel world now had human advisors teaching guerrilla warfare and asymmetric tactics. Lisa Park commanded medical operations that kept rebel forces healthy and fighting. David Kim led engineering teams that turned peaceful technology into weapons of war. Mina Park coordinated air and space operations, using modified civilian vessels. But their greatest weapon was something the Council had never encountered before: hope. Enslaved populations that have been passive for centuries are suddenly fighting back, Dr. Kim reported. Human concepts like death before dishonor and live free or die are spreading through rebel territories faster than Council forces can respond. The psychological impact was devastating to Council morale. For millennia, they had ruled through the simple threat of superior force. Species surrendered because resistance seemed hopeless. Now entire worlds were choosing destruction over submission. Council forces found themselves fighting enemies who preferred death to slavery. It was a completely alien concept to species that had never faced existential warfare. "The Council is requesting negotiation," Agent Park announced during one of their regular briefings. "They're offering to recognize Earth as an independent world in exchange for ending support for the rebellion." Marcus laughed bitterly. "They still don't understand. This isn't about Earth anymore. This is about every world they've enslaved. Every species they've broken. Every civilization they've destroyed. So we continue fighting?" Commander Han asked. Marcus looked at the display showing rebel forces across the galaxy. Humans and aliens fighting side by side against an empire that had ruled unopposed for thousands of years. People who had been slaves discovering they could be soldiers. Worlds that had been victims learning they could be victorious. "We fight until every chain is broken," Marcus said, "until every slave is free. Until the Council learns that some things are worth dying for." The war raged for 2 more years. Battles were fought in asteroid belts and nebulae. Entire star systems changed hands multiple times. Ancient civilizations that had been peaceful for millennia learned how to build weapons and fight for their freedom. The Council's technological advantages slowly eroded as more species joined the rebellion and shared their knowledge. Human tactical innovation combined with alien engineering capabilities to create new weapons and strategies that Council forces could not counter. But the real victory was not military. It was ideological. The concept of unconditional surrender is spreading throughout Council territory, Dr. Kim reported. Species that have been integrated for centuries are remembering what independence feels like. Marcus watched the latest battle reports from his command center. His mobility suit had been upgraded with Karathi technology that let him stand and walk, but he still preferred his wheelchair. It reminded him of where he had started and why he was fighting. Status report from all sectors, he ordered. Thesian Empire has lost control of 40% of their territory, Elena reported. Their military is stretched too thin to maintain order. Vorthon Republic is facing internal rebellion on their core worlds, Jake added. Their own citizens are demanding democratic reforms. Nexus Collective is fragmenting, Lisa announced. Member species are declaring independence and joining our alliance. Marcus nodded as he absorbed the information. The Galactic Council was falling apart, not because they had been defeated in battle, but because the idea of freedom had proven more powerful than the threat of force. Final phase begins now, Marcus announced. All forces converge on the Council homeworld. Time to finish this war. And across the galaxy, an army of former slaves prepared for the battle that would determine the future of every thinking being among the stars. The Council homeworld of Nexus Prime had never been attacked in its 5,000-year history. Massive orbital defense platforms surrounded the planet like mechanical moons. Energy shields that could stop entire fleets protected the surface cities. Military installations built into the planet's crust housed weapons capable of destroying solar systems. It was the most heavily defended world in the galaxy, which was exactly why Marcus chose to attack it. The psychological impact will be decisive, he explained to the assembled fleet commanders as they gathered in the rebel flagship's war room. The Council's power comes from the belief that they are untouchable. Prove they can be reached and their entire empire crumbles. Commander Han studied the tactical displays showing Nexus Prime's defenses. Even with the combined rebel fleet of over 1,000 ships, a direct assault would be suicide. The orbital platforms alone have more firepower than our entire force, he pointed out, and that's before we consider the planetary shields and surface installations. Which is why we're not going to fight them, Marcus replied. He activated a holographic projector that showed detailed schematics of the planet's defense network. We're going to turn them against each other, Dr. Kim smiled as she recognized the plan. After years of working with humans, she had learned to think like them. Asymmetric, unconventional, always looking for ways to make the enemy defeat themselves. The defense platforms are automated, she explained to the other commanders. They use artificial intelligence to coordinate their responses and prevent friendly fire incidents. AI can be hacked, Jake added. His expertise in electronic warfare had expanded far beyond anything taught in human military schools. Especially AI that's never been designed to resist the kind of cyber attacks we've developed. Agent Park displayed additional intelligence gathered by Karathi operatives over the past months. The planet's entire infrastructure is controlled by a central computer network. Power generation, life support systems, transportation, communication, everything runs through the same core systems. Marcus looked around the room at faces representing dozens of species that had learned to fight together against their former oppressors. Humans and Karathi working alongside Zintari warriors and Novani technicians, former slaves who had become the galaxy's most effective military force. Phase 1 begins in 6 hours, Marcus announced. Jake's team infiltrates the defense network and begins uploading our virus packages. Elena coordinates the diversionary attacks to draw attention away from the real insertion points. Lisa prepares medical support for what's going to be a very messy operation. What about the council chambers themselves? Commander Han asked. Even if we disable the defenses, there are still military forces protecting the leadership. Marcus smiled and touched the controls of his mobility suit. Over the years, it had been upgraded with technology from dozens of worlds. Karathi stealth systems, Zintari armor plating, Novani medical support. He was more machine than man now, but that just made him more dangerous. That part is mine, he said. The attack began with electronic warfare that no council species had ever experienced before. Human hackers working with alien technicians launched cyber attacks that penetrated security systems, designed to be impenetrable. The defense platforms suddenly began registering each other as hostile targets. Weapons that had protected Nexus Prime for millennia turned inward and began destroying each other in automated responses to false threat indicators. Orbital defenses down 60% and falling, Jake reported from his position aboard the command ship. The AI is learning to counter our attacks, but not fast enough. Meanwhile, Elena's strike teams hit transportation hubs and communication centers across the planet's surface. Not to destroy them, but to inject more virus code into the central network. Every system they touched became another entry point for the rebellion's cyber weapons. Surface installations are going offline, Elena reported. The virus is spreading through their network faster than they can isolate it, but the real infiltration was happening at a much more personal level. Marcus and a small team of human special operations veterans had used stolen Council transport codes to reach the planet's capital city. Their job was to penetrate the Council chambers themselves and broadcast evidence of Council atrocities to every world in their communication network. Security is tighter than expected, David Kim reported as they moved through the underground tunnels beneath the government district. They've learned from our previous operations. Not enough, Marcus replied. He was studying building schematics provided by Novani architects who had helped construct the Council chambers centuries earlier. They're still thinking in terms of external threats. They never considered internal sabotage. The team moved through service tunnels and maintenance shafts that honeycombed the massive government complex. Marcus's mobility suit allowed him to keep pace with his walking teammates while carrying enough firepower to level a city block. They reached the Council chambers just as the emergency session was beginning. Representatives from all three major species were gathering to coordinate their response to the orbital platform failures. This is impossible, Council Speaker Thex was declaring as the team watched from hidden positions. Our defenses were designed by the finest engineers in the galaxy. No primitive species should be able to penetrate them. The humans are not primitive, another voice replied. This was from Councillor Vex, the same Thesian commander who had demanded Earth's surrender 3 years earlier. We underestimated them from the beginning. They fight like nothing in our experience. Marcus activated his communication system and began broadcasting, not just to the Council chamber, but to every world in their territory. Evidence that Dr. Kim had compiled over years of investigation. Proof of genocide, documentation of slavery, records of species driven to extinction for refusing to surrender. People of the galaxy, Marcus's voice echoed through billions of speakers across Council space. See what your leaders have hidden from you. See what they do to worlds that refuse to kneel. The holographic displays in the Council chamber filled with images that the leadership had tried to keep secret. Dead worlds, slave camps, children separated from parents. Entire civilizations erased because they dared to resist. This is what the Galactic Council calls peace, Marcus continued. This is what they call order. This is what they wanted to do to Earth and every other free world in the galaxy. Across Council territory, populations that had been kept in ignorance suddenly saw the truth. The revolts began immediately, not just on conquered worlds but on Council core planets where citizens had believed they were part of a benevolent galactic government. Enough, Speaker Thex declared, rising from his ceremonial throne. Kill the transmission. Kill the rebels. Kill anyone who stands in our way. But it was too late. The virus Jake's team had injected into their systems had spread too far. The evidence was already being copied and retransmitted by millions of sources they could no longer control. Marcus stepped out of hiding and into the Council chamber. His mobility suit's weapon systems were visible but not yet armed. Around him, his team took positions covering all exits. Council Speaker Thex, Marcus said formally. I am General Marcus Rodriguez of the Galactic Liberation Alliance. I hereby place you and your government under arrest for crimes against sapient life. The Council guards moved to stop him, but found their weapons would not function. The same virus that had disabled the orbital platforms had infected their personal equipment. You cannot do this, Thex protested. We are the legitimate government of this galaxy. We have maintained peace for 5,000 years. You've maintained your version of peace, Marcus replied, built on the bones of everyone who disagreed with you. That ends now. Around the galaxy, the broadcasts were having their intended effect. Military units were laying down their arms rather than fight their own civilians. Governors and administrators were declaring independence from Council authority. Entire sectors were breaking away to join the rebellion. The Council fleets are requesting terms of surrender, Agent Park reported from orbit. Their crews are refusing to fire on their own homeworlds. Marcus looked around the Council chamber at beings who had ruled the galaxy through fear and force for millennia. They seemed smaller now, less impressive. Just another group of bullies who had never expected their victims to fight back. "Here are my terms," Marcus said. "Complete surrender. Full documentation of all Council activities. Reparations to every species you've enslaved or destroyed. And trials for everyone responsible for the atrocities." "And if we refuse?" Counselor Vex asked. Marcus smiled and activated his suit's weapon systems. The chamber filled with the humming of charged energy weapons as his team prepared for battle. "Then you die here and now," Marcus said simply. "Your choice." The silence stretched for long moments. Then Speaker Thex's shoulders sagged in defeat. "We surrender," he said quietly. Within hours, the surrender was formalized. The Galactic Council ceased to exist as a governing body. In its place rose the Galactic Federation, a true democracy based on principles that Marcus and his fellow humans had learned from their own history of fighting tyranny. The trials took years. The rebuilding took longer. But across the galaxy, species that had been slaves learned to be free. 5 years after the fall of the Galactic Council, Marcus Rodriguez sat in his office overlooking the rebuilt capital of the Galactic Federation. The city below sparkled with lights from dozens of different species, all living and working together in ways that would have been impossible under the old regime. His wheelchair was gone now, replaced by a mobility suit that combined the best technology from every member world of the Federation. But he kept the old chair in his office as a reminder of where he had started. A broken soldier that nobody wanted sitting in the rain outside a VA hospital. A soft chime indicated someone was requesting entry to his office. Ambassador Rodriguez, as he was now known, activated the door controls. Dr. Kim entered carrying a data pad and wearing the satisfied expression she got when delivering good news. Behind her came Commander Han, who now served as head of Federation Security, and Agent Park, who had become the director of interspecies relations. "The latest reports from the integration committees," Dr. Kim announced, setting the data pad on Marcus's desk. "Another 12 systems have completed their transition to democratic governments. That brings the total to over 800 liberated worlds." Marcus picked up the pad and scrolled through the information. Former slave worlds were becoming independent democracies, species that had been scattered across the galaxy, as laborers were returning to their homeworlds to rebuild. Civilizations that had been crushed under Council rule were rediscovering their own cultures and traditions. "Any problems with the transitions?" Marcus asked. "Minor issues," Commander Han replied. "Some former Council officials are trying to maintain local control. A few species are having difficulty adjusting to self-governance after centuries of oppression. But nothing our peacekeeping forces can't handle." The Federation peacekeeping forces were Marcus's proudest achievement. Instead of a traditional military designed to conquer and occupy, they were trained to protect and serve. Many of the officers were former resistance fighters who understood what it meant to fight for freedom. "What about the war crimes trials?" Marcus asked. Agent Park consulted her own data pad. "Proceeding on schedule. Former Council Speaker Thex was sentenced to life imprisonment yesterday. Councilor Vex received 25 years for his role in the Earth invasion. Most of the lower-level officials are accepting plea agreements in exchange for cooperation." Marcus nodded. Justice was important, but so was healing. The Federation needed to punish those responsible for atrocities while also giving former Council worlds a chance to join the new galactic community. A communication alert interrupted their meeting. The holographic display above Marcus's desk activated to show Elena Vasquez calling from Earth. "Marcus, we've got a situation," Elena said without preamble. She looked tired but determined. "Long-range sensors have detected ships approaching from outside the galaxy. Unknown configuration. Unknown intentions." Marcus felt the familiar tightness in his chest that came with new threats. The galaxy had just finished healing from one war. It was not ready for another. "How many ships?" he asked. "At least 50? Possibly more. They're using technology we don't recognize." "Not Council. Not any of the known species. Something completely new." Dr. Kim was already pulling up star charts on her data pad. "Extragalactic visitors are extremely rare. In all our records, there are only 3 documented cases of contact with species from other galaxies." "And how did those contacts go?" Marcus asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Badly, Dr. Kim admitted. 2 resulted in complete conquest of the visiting species' home galaxy. The 3rd resulted in mutual destruction of both civilizations. Marcus considered the implications. The galaxy had just emerged from tyranny and was learning to live in freedom. The Federation was still fragile. Member worlds were still adjusting to democracy. Military forces were focused on peacekeeping rather than warfare. They were not prepared for an invasion by an unknown enemy. Time until they reach Federation space? Marcus asked. 6 months at their current speed, Elena replied. Maybe less if they have faster ships we haven't detected yet. Marcus looked around at his team. These were people who had helped him overthrow the most powerful empire in galactic history. They had faced impossible odds before and found ways to win. Recommendations? He asked. We need more information, Commander Han said immediately. I'll organize reconnaissance missions to intercept and observe the approaching fleet. I'll coordinate with our xenobiology teams, Dr. Kim added. If these are extragalactic species, their technology and tactics could be completely different from anything we've encountered. And I'll reach out to our contacts in other galaxies, Agent Park said. The Karathi maintain communication links with several neighboring star systems. Maybe someone has information about these visitors. Marcus nodded and activated his communication system to address the Federation Council. Emergency session, he announced. All member world representatives to report immediately. Priority Alpha classification. Within hours, the Federation capital was buzzing with activity. Ships arrived from across the galaxy carrying diplomats, military officers, and scientists. The great assembly hall that had once housed the Galactic Council now filled with representatives from hundreds of free worlds. Marcus addressed the assembly from his mobility suit, standing before beings who had learned to trust his judgment through years of successful leadership. Fellow citizens of the galaxy, he began, we face a new challenge. Unknown ships are approaching from beyond our galactic boundaries. We do not know their intentions. We do not know their capabilities. But we know that freedom is worth defending against any threat. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Every member world pledged support. Military forces that had been focused on peacekeeping began preparing for potential warfare. Scientists and engineers started developing new technologies to counter unknown threats. But Marcus knew that technology alone would not be enough. The Federation's greatest strength was not its weapons or its ships. It was the unity that came from shared values and common purpose. I want to tell you about something that happened on my world, Marcus continued, addressing the assembly. When I was a young soldier, my unit was surrounded by enemy forces. We were outnumbered 10-1. Our equipment was inferior. Our supplies were running low. By every military calculation, we should have surrendered. The assembly hall fell silent as beings from across the galaxy listened to the human who had taught them how to fight. But we didn't surrender. We fought because we believed in something worth fighting for. We protected each other because we knew that our strength came not from our weapons but from our bonds. And we won because our enemies could not understand that kind of unity. Marcus looked around at the faces staring up at him, former slaves who had become leaders, conquered species who had rediscovered their courage, broken civilizations who had learned to rebuild. Whatever is coming from beyond our galaxy, they will face something that no conqueror has ever faced before. They will face a united galaxy. They will face billions of beings who know what freedom means and are willing to fight to keep it. The response was thunderous. Representatives rose to their feet cheering. Voices from dozens of species joined together in a sound that echoed through the Great Hall and was transmitted to every world in Federation space. But even as the assembly pledged to defend their freedom, Marcus was already planning for the worst-case scenario, because he had learned long ago that hope was important, but preparation was essential. Over the following months, the Federation prepared for contact with the unknown visitors. Military forces trained for scenarios they had never imagined. Diplomatic teams developed protocols for dealing with potentially hostile extragalactic species. Scientists worked around the clock to understand alien technology that operated on completely different principles. And in his office overlooking the capital, Marcus Rodriguez studied intelligence, reports and tactical assessments while his old wheelchair sat nearby as a reminder of how far he had come, from a broken soldier, discarded by his own people, to the leader of a galactic democracy. from someone who had nothing left to lose to someone responsible for the freedom of trillions of beings. The unknown ships were still approaching. The future was still uncertain, but Marcus had learned something important during his years of fighting impossible odds. Sometimes the greatest victories came not from being unbreakable, but from refusing to stay broken. Whatever was coming from beyond the stars would learn what the Galactic Council had learned before them. The galaxy was no longer a place where tyrants could rule unopposed. It was home to beings who had chosen freedom over safety, courage over comfort, and unity over fear. And they would fight to keep it that way. Marcus smiled as he looked out at the lights of the capital city. Somewhere out there, former enemies worked together as allies. Former slaves served as leaders. Former victims had become protectors. The galaxy had been broken, but like the best soldiers, it had healed stronger than before, and it was ready for whatever came next.